Hello, and welcome to today's chapter in Books and the World, a presentation of the Cape Cod Writers Center. I'm your host on today's program. I'm Bob Silverberg, and sitting opposite to me is the author of this program, William Nolan. Welcome to Books and the World, Bob.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
The book today, as our easel shows, is called The Therapist. And you were not a therapist, though.
No, I was a guidance counselor at an elementary school. That's as close as I came to it.
And in the book, the museum plays a major role. We're talking about the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum in Boston.
Right.
Established in?
Well, 1903 they opened.
And nothing really alarming happened until 1990.
1990, the 18th of March.
And then everything broke
All hell
loose.
broke loose, absolutely.
Now, how does that particular museum, the robbery that took place there some 22 years ago, and the book titled The Therapist all fit together?
In the book, in the first chapter, one of the thieves comes to a therapist for reasons that I won't go into right now, to talk to to go into the fact that he was the main thief behind everything, you know.
This is years after it
This
happened.
is years after. It takes place in present time, and basically in the book you get to find out what has happened over the last 22 years since the robbery.
So he walks into a therapist's office, first appointment.
First appointment for completely self-serving reasons.
And then he tells the therapist, I am one of the thieves of the huge robbery that actually took place.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now, this is a fictional confessor.
Right.
He's not, as far as you know, he's not one of the real thieves.
No. Basically what I did is I took the facts that we know about the robbery, and we don't know that many facts because, of course, they've never arrested anyone. None of the artwork has ever been found.
All these years later.
All these years, 22 years later. And it's, a lot of people don't realize this, but it's the largest art heist in history, worldwide. There's never been a larger art heist.
Well, yeah, they stole a Monet, they stole a Degas, they stole a Rembrandt.
Right.
Were those just those three or many others?
No, there were others. There were a total of 13 pieces that they stole. One of the reasons it's fascinating is the thieves had the run of the museum for, really, they could have had the run of the museum for the whole night. And there was minimal security. But it's fascinating what they didn't take. There's a painting at the museum called Europa, which is considered actually the most valuable painting in all of Boston, even considering the Museum of Fine Arts.
And they left it there.
They left it alone. A couple of John Singer Sargents they didn't touch, and yet they stole some things, a couple of things that really had no serious value, and they've never been able to figure out why that was. I come up with my own theory in the book as to why that was, but
it almost sounds as if they had a place to get rid of this art.
Yeah.
And it's almost a pre-stealing list.
That's my angle in the book.
Some extremely wealthy person who has a private gallery,
Right.
conjecturing here,
Right.
says, listen, thief, I want you to go in there and steal not that painting, but this painting.
Exactly. They had a shopping list. That's my
Really?
theory, yeah. At least that's what worked in my fictional account of what happened. And the one painting I focus on is a Rembrandt that was taken, Storm on the Sea of Galilee, which was the only seascape that Rembrandt ever painted. It's an amazing painting to begin with. Just to give you a quick idea, it's Christ and the 12 apostles in a boat on in the Sea of Galilee during a storm. And the 12 apostles all look terrified in the painting. Christ looks peaceful. But there's a 14th person on the boat, and very few people really know this, but They think the 14th person is a self-portrait of Rembrandt.
Of Rembrandt.
Yeah.
He possibly put himself.
And he's
into the
looking
painting.
out at whoever would be looking at the painting. He's not looking where the others are looking.
Is he calm and collected?
And he's calm and collected. So who knows? Who knows if that's true or not? But
it makes a wonderful story.
it makes a wonderful story. So that's the painting I focus on in the book.
All right, now 22 years have gone by since the robbery
Right.
at the museum. Has any of this shown up anywhere?
No, no. In 1994, an anonymous letter was sent to the museum, and they really felt this might be the break they were looking for. And in the letter, whoever wrote the letter had information that only the thieves would have had, that had never been publicized. And in the letter he said, if you want to make a deal with me, which was amnesty and so like $23 million.
He wanted money
He
as well.
wanted
as
money
I
as well. He said, put an ad in the Boston Globe, and he was very specific. It wasn't even an ad, it was a code. And he said, if I read that in the paper, I'll know that you're serious. And
So the contact would be made.
so the Globe printed it. The FBI was notified. And the guy did send a second letter. And the second letter said, I'm glad you're serious, but I'm a little nervous with the FBI involved now. I'll get back to you. And I never heard from him again.
And whoever it was, he or she, never did.
And they're convinced that that person knew something.
Yeah, because of the extra details
Just
they put in
the
there.
information. But other than that, there's never been any breakthrough. Now, it's interesting. Last week, the headlines of the Boston Globe
I heard something
were
lately.
about the museum. And the FBI is now starting a new campaign, public awareness. And they're just trying to put the message out there, and they're going to start running ads on TV, talking about the different, different paintings that were stolen, and just trying to get a public awareness going, and which
So-
would be nice, free publicity.
That's true, yes. If they don't find the thieves right away, then
Right.
they can read your book, Bill.
Yeah, I want them to find the thieves, but not for a year or so. Then they
Yeah,
can,
give
that is
time
fine.
for the book to
yeah,
get
then they
around
can,
a little bit.
absolutely, yeah.
All right, the characters you've created to follow this particular storyline of yours.
Right.
There's the therapist, of course, because the thief goes to the
Right.
therapist, fiction part.
Right,
He's not alone, though. He has helpers.
right. There are several in the crew that stole the artwork.
Now,
And so they're all involved in the book.
and according to your story, Bill, and I don't think you've endeared yourself to the Boston Police Department with this particular
I
thought,
probably haven't, no.
because you have written in the book, The Therapist, that the thieves thought they were getting away with it, and they did completely for a few weeks.
Yeah,
And then suddenly, according to your story, three, not one, two, but three policemen of the Boston police force got in touch with them and said, we know you did it, and we want money to stay quiet.
yeah.
What devious turn of mind created that?
Well, it's an interesting idea that the thieves were actually caught a month after the robbery. But there was an understanding that the cops would not say a thing, and in return they would get an annual payment and just keep quiet. And that worked for 21 years. It worked beautifully, but then all of a sudden things started falling apart
In your story?
in my story.
Yes, because we're
And
talking.
that's why he goes to the therapist, because things are falling apart.
What can the therapist do for him?
Well, it's kind of complicated. There's a reason he goes to the specific therapist, which I don't want to get into too much,
All right.
but it'll give too much away. But and the therapist, the reason he wants to go to a therapist is if something goes wrong with the police, and he's worried about that happening now, and something happens to him, he wants to know that he told the truth to somebody who will then follow through
So he's on the record.
on the record. But he also wants to know that if things don't fall through, that the person he's telling this to can't say anything to anybody, confidentiality.
The doctor-patient
Doctor-patient.
relationship.
So he has it both ways. He's safe if nothing happens, because the therapist can't say a thing. And if something does happen, he knows